Hello, this is Capital Ideas Live, the video version of the magazine on business in Moscow. I'm John Harris.
What will Moscow be like in the third millennium?
Healthy, smart, good-looking.
Russians and Britons together for ecological architecture.
If you want to do it, you can do it.
Will Moscow become rich thanks to FIFA? The income from tourists amounted to 596 billion rubles. Watch it now. Capital Ideas Live.
Now, it's really difficult to find anywhere in Europe that's changed quite as much as Moscow over the past 30 years. Some people like the changes, some people don't like the changes, but one thing you can say is the changes are there. Now, our first report is about those changes seen through the eyes of a foreigner living in Moscow.
Just a few years ago, the old mansions were hidden behind advertising billboards and the pavements were packed with parked cars.
We can start with Rождественская Street, and definitely it was a street with a lot of traffic, with a lot of cars, and was very noisy, very dirty. It was not fun to walk around.
But in 2015, the My Street program began. With the expansion of pedestrian zones, the reconstruction of facades and the planting of trees. The program has already covered over 200 streets.
It's very nice now, I think, especially in the summertime, people date here, meet here, the music playing, you know, dancing and so on.
Victor Michelson, a businessman and public activist. For the last 20 years, he's lived in Moscow. A new generation has grown up before his eyes.
If you look at the crowd of Moscow students, you will see that they're, you know, healthy, smart, good-looking, strong, physically attractive.
It's new Muscovites of this kind that work in the Wow House Architectural Bureau. Their projects include the epicenters of city life, such as Park Gorky and the Krymskaya Embankment, the Stanislavski Electro Theatre and the Pioneer Cinema. And a lot more sites in the capital that will have a new life. The Hippodrome, for example. It's part of our public heritage and an architectural monument, one of the only ones of its kind in Europe. Next year, in 2018, the My Street program will take in the outskirts of Moscow. The whole of Moscow should become comfortable and ecological.
To my mind, Moscow is within maybe 5 most vibrant, most dynamic, most developed cities. Today,
Moscow looks to the future. Urban planners are trying to work out what kind of city this is going to be. What are the future priorities? We discussed this with Guy Eames, the chair of the Russia Green Building Council. Now, the magazine Capital Ideas is about Moscow, and one of the themes that we're talking about quite a lot is the whole idea of ecological building.
Right.
Now, will you start off please telling us what on earth that means?
Well, an ecological building or a sustainable building is basically, it's a new concept. There are 3 parts to it. The first one, it should be resource saving, so it should be really efficient building in terms of power, in terms of the amount of land it uses, and generally what it's made out of. Second, it should be really comfortable for people to live in, so really high levels of comfort. And thirdly, it should be better for the environment, so it shouldn't have a negative influence on the environment around us.
So how does these new buildings sort of fit into the life of this city in general? How do they change this city?
Any building which is green, which is in an urban environment, definitely improves the city landscape. If you work in one of those buildings, you're most likely to be more productive than in another building. If you go for a job interview, you think, I want to work in that company. It's really cool there, it's really nice.
Now, you're in the developing business, well, perhaps not you personally, but you know all about that. There's always been a problem with sort of developers, Western developers coming into Russia, and they've not been able to speak the same language basically. Has that problem been overcome now? Are we able to talk to each other at least?
Well, there are a few problems from the Russian building standards, regulations, in terms of sanitary norms, firewalls, things like that.
Yeah.
But generally, you can build a pretty good quality green building over here without any problems. It's more a mentality issue. It's more people not being used to the ideas of having a lot of natural light, not having, not using, for example, water, recycling water,
yeah.
or having LED lighting instead of the traditional types of lighting.
Yeah.
It's more a mentality issue, I think, than
okay, so it's not a technical issue. You're talking about mindsets, basically.
Exactly. If you want to do it, you can do it, basically.
Yeah. Today's programs of the Moscow government, like programs like My Street and Million of Trees, do they follow the principles that you stand for?
Yeah. Generally, what's going on with the sustainable landscapes, it fits in quite well with the green building principles. And again, like we said with the parks, they fit in quite nicely together. Ideas like sustainable transport, so much better quality buses, trolley buses, trams, they encourage people to move from their cars onto public transport, which means that you get less pollution, you get less noise in the city. It's a good trend. It's a global trend, and it's happening now in Moscow, and I think we can be grateful to Sobyanin and to the city architect for implementing them.
Now, Moscow's looking forward to the 2018 FIFA World Cup. Such massive projects have infrastructure implications on the city. The 1980 Soviet Olympiad, for example, left hundreds of buildings, restaurants, hotels, residential blocks. Those were the days of the Soviet Central Planning Authorities, when basically they built everything. These days, the Moscow authorities basically design the rules for others to build by. So what can visitors look forward to in Moscow when they come here in 2018?
The legendary Luzhniki Stadium, from which the Olympic Mishka Bear took off 37 years ago following reconstruction, has a capacity for 81,000 fans. Moscow's youngest stadium, Открытие Arena, can take 45,000. The reconstruction of the Dynamo Stadium will soon be completed. Next year, tens of thousands of sportsmen and fans will come to Russia from all over the world. Is Moscow ready to receive them? There are, at present, 67,000 hotel rooms in Moscow. 60% of them have already been booked for the dates of the championship. The biggest demand is for cheap hostels and capsule hotels. A normal hotel is wonderful. It's big, it's a pleasure to be there, but the bulk of people spend 80 to 90% of their time outside the hotel. And people don't need all that luxury anymore. Moscow's restaurateurs will have to feed tens of thousands of sportsmen and fans. In Moscow, they have to dine like tsars, party like a Russian. First and foremost, it's probably our fish. Siberian fish, sturgeon, caviar, various mushrooms. The bulk of Europeans only know a few different types of mushroom, but we've got a fairly large number. Our berries. But those who can't afford sterlet won't go hungry either. Good day, sir. Wouldst thou deign to dine with us? Pancakes with various fillings is Russia's answer to burgers and kebabs. Fast, inexpensive, and you can eat them on the go. But during the World Championship, the most popular format for catering in Moscow, of course, will be the sports bar. Fans that haven't got into the stadium can watch the championship matches in all the pubs that you'll find almost literally on every corner in Moscow. When the game's finished, just before flying home, you'll be able to spend all your remaining rubles on souvenirs. The highest concentration of nesting dolls and Ushanki ear-flap hats per square meter is to be found on Moscow's Arbat Street. In 2016, Russia's capital was visited by 17.5 million guests. Moscow's Department of Sport and Tourism is planning for Russia to become the world champion, if not in football, then at least in terms of hospitality.
Critics of professional sports often talk about the relevance of professional sports in terms of the fitness and health of the general public. After all, you can sit on a couch with a remote control, flick between channels, between sporting channels. It's really got nothing to do with your health, has it? Now, this is one issue we talk about with Nikolai Gulyaev, the head of the Sporting and Tourism Department of Moscow City Government. The last issue of Capital Ideas magazine is partly devoted to the development of new sports facilities in Moscow. What else is the city doing, not only in terms of infrastructure projects to host FIFA 2018?
I would say that the changes that we're seeing in the city aren't especially for the World Championships. They're the result of a comprehensive approach and various state programs being implemented in Moscow that are aimed at improving the lives of the Muscovites themselves. Of course, the World Championships is driving development. I wouldn't particularly separate off this event as a mega additional investment in the city's economy. We can cite some figures here to back this up. Last year, there were 19 million tourists and 4.4 million foreigners visited our city. The total income from tourists amounted to 596 billion rubles.
What will be left for Muscovites after the fans have come and gone in terms of facilities constructed for the FIFA Championship?
Luzhniki isn't just a stadium. It's also the biggest and best sports and entertainment center not only in Moscow, but also in the whole of Russia. Apart from the large sports arena, after the World Championship, we'll have a large swimming center, including a 50-meter Olympic pool, 2 25-meter pools, and an aqua complex with an opening roof. So it's for sportsmen and women and for the entire family. Muscovites and visitors to our city will enjoy spending days on the territory of this wonderful complex. I'm certain of that.
As an Olympic champion, do you think that such events really promote sports and healthy lifestyles?
In comparison with 2010, the number of Muscovites regularly engaging in sports and exercise has almost doubled, and there are now 4 million such people. We can say with confidence that today it's fashionable to be engaged in sports. Research shows that successful performances by Russia's sportsmen at the Olympic Games is directly linked to children signing up to sports activities in the various different sports where we've had some serious achievements.
At the end, I would like to say, just please love sport, be sportive, and go to the stadiums.
Next week, the most popular geotags among tourists in Moscow. The best spots according to the social networks. The cultural life of Moscow is more than the Kalinka song and Swan Lake. Next time on Capital Ideas Live.
That's it. That's all we're going to show you this week. I hope you found it interesting. Come back again next week. My name's John Harrison.